Hey, it's Corey with Blue Falcon Board Gaming. If you're new to the channel, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran who started Blue Falcon Board Gaming in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of promoting positive mental health through board gaming, as well as making board games more accessible to the community by hosting and co-hosting free events. Today, I've got Weston here with me. Weston, would you like to introduce yourself?
Howdy. I am Weston. I am a aspiring game designer. I am also a veteran, though. I was in the Army, not the Marine Corps. It's all right. One fight, one team, right?
I was going to say, I won't hold it against you. So, you want to tell us about you got a Kickstarter right now. You want to tell us about that?
I do have a Kickstarter right now. It is a part of Zine Quest, and the Kickstarter is called Roll for Fire. Roll for Fire is a tabletop role-playing game which is best described as rules light and simulation heavy. The game is set in the Paleolithic era, and players play as archaic humans, with the options currently being Neanderthal, Homo naledi, Homo florensis, and Denisovans. Players play as these characters trying to survive the trials and the tribulations of the Paleolithic era, and not just survive, but also thrive and build up their tribes.
So is it like a campaign style where there's certain scenarios pre-written, or is it more just you do what you want, here's the general guidelines?
There will be... I wish I could turn that off. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
There will be, along with the zine, there will be sort of campaign ideas. There will be a couple of scenarios written within the game. As far as gameplay goes, it lends itself best to a survival game more than anything else, with a couple of specific things that players will do, quests that players will go on, and much of the game being sandbox up to their choice on what direction they want to take their tribe and their group.
Now, is there like a player max or anything like that, or can you solo it, or do you have to have at least two people? Do you have to have the GM going? What does that setup look like?
So the game is thematically about community. That is our core tenets of the game. Is you can't survive this alone, and you need your tribe there with you. You need your friends. You need folks who you can rely on. And so being able to rely on each other is very deeply ingrained into the mechanics of the game. It is possible to do this game GM-less. There are tables to handle those that will be included in the zine. And it is also possible, if you only have a GM and one player, to play the game that way. It is deeply recommended because of the community aspects that player runs several characters in order to do that, because one single character is not able to do everything on their own.
Gotcha. So you developed like a new rule system with it. You want to kind of say what some of the basics are of that, or any differences between other tabletop games?
I did, and absolutely, I'd love to. So once again, we were looking for something that was very heavy on simulation. What I noticed when looking at other tabletop RPGs was that oftentimes there were a lot of numbers that were very far removed from life. You and I don't have levels. We don't have health points. We don't have experience points. And we don't have modifiers to our attack rolls and our perception rolls. What we do have is a particular set of skills. So what we do have is attributes about us. We have skills that we've honed, and those skills can range anything from being good at cooking to being good at sneaking around in the woods, or recognizing one tree from another. And so in order to best facilitate that, our game is based on, rather than a set of numbers associated to you, a set of descriptions. And each one of these descriptions allows you to be better at different tasks. At the base level, we have Homo naledi, who is a species of archaic human who were better adapted to climbing. They were an arboreal species. They were better adapted to climbing than modern humans are. So they're particularly good at climbing. And then as you complete quests and you survive, you gain other descriptors. Perhaps you would be described as strong, or cunning, or agile. And these descriptors allow you to do better at challenges that you face within the context of the game. Again, to go back to Homo naledi, they are better at climbing, and let's say they pick up the trait agile. Now, we inherently, because of the way language works, we have an idea in our head of what someone who is agile is good at, the sort of things they are good at. And this idea is codified within the context of the game and applied. And it's a big part of the game is, codifying natural language this way. So we've gotten rid of hit points, we've gotten rid of numbers, and instead are based on language. Now, in order to succeed, though, we still want we want to roll dice. We love rolling dice here at the tables, and this is where we get into the crunchy dice rolling. Anything anybody does, they roll a d4, and if they roll a 4, they succeed. Anything they want to try that is within reason. Now, a big part of the rules is that whatever they are attempting has to have a cost to failure and a reasonable chance of failure in order for it to be worth rolling. You and I are probably pretty good at walking down the street, or drinking a cup of coffee. We don't need to roll in order to do these things or to climb a ladder. But if we are stalking a wild boar, for example, we may want a series of rolls for that. So you roll a 4 if you roll a 4-sided die, and if you roll a 4, you succeed. Where do those traits come in? Those traits increase the size of the die you roll. So to take Homo naledi again, who is again an arboreal species, if let's say they are rolling to run away from something through the trees, or to climb a tree to, let's say, escape some wolves, with their species being particularly good at that, they're going to increase their die size from a d4 to a d6. That increases their chances of success from 25% to 50%. A pretty decent jump when it comes to success. If they have traits which also assist with this, let's go with agile again for an example. They are climbing the tree. They are inherently good at it because of their species, and they are agile. We are now going to increase this to a d8. This is drastically, again, increasing their percent chance of success. This is where we also add in the possibility of multiple successes. Every factor of 8, or every factor of 4, that is on a 4, an 8, and a 12, you have an additional success. 4 is 1 success, an 8 or greater is 2 successes, and rolling a 12 is considered 3 successes. We stop at 12-sided die because a 20-sided die, your chance of failing at all on a 20-sided die would be so low that it wouldn't even be worth rolling. And so to ensure that we still maintain some amount of risk, we cap out at a 20-sided die, which is you would have 6, 8, 10, and 12. That would mean you would have 4 traits or 4 aspects to your character, which make you better at the thing you are attempting to do.
Okay. Now, is there any negative effects that could get applied to, like, remove the size of dice or to lower the size of dice that you roll?
There are negative effects, but rather than changing the size of the die you roll, we take a little bit from our friends in other games to add and subtract die. Whenever there is an outside factor, you either helping you or hindering you, it changes your vantage, giving you either advantage or disadvantage. Unlike some of those other games, rolling with both advantage and disadvantage any number of times doesn't inherently cancel each other out. If, let's say, I'm again climbing this tree and I have a rope. A rope, if I use that rope to help me climb, I can roll 2 dice with advantage. So if either of those die, roll a 4 or greater, I have succeeded. If, for example, I have a rope and someone helping me, someone boosting me up the tree, I will now have 2 advantage, so I will roll 3 die. On the other side, let's say the tree doesn't have any branches, very low. That's a good reason to apply disadvantage. Now with 1 disadvantage, I'm rolling 2 die again. And if that tree has been greased up for some reason, well, that's a second disadvantage. Now with all of those combined, I am back at rolling 1 dice again. If it is greased up and the tree has no low-hanging limbs, and those are the only outside modifiers, I don't have a rope and no one's helping me, I'm going to roll with twice disadvantage. That is, I'm going to roll 3 die, and I am going to take the lowest die in order to determine whether or not I succeeded.
Okay. So I know a lot of people, they're not always too keen on learning a new rule book or a new system. What do you think the entry level is for the new system that you developed as far as learning it and being able to apply it?
The goal was to create something that could that the entire rule set can easily fit on 1 page, and we've done that. If you read a standard 8.5 by 11 page sheet of paper, that is enough to fit every single rule for you to play the game and understand it. Now, to run the game or to do more complex things within the game, there are additional rules. But for the basic, hey, I want to play this game with my friends, this is all someone needs to know how to do. All of it easily written on 1 sheet of paper. It was a very important thing. As someone who's been playing tabletop RPGs for over a decade now and has often found myself as the designated game master for these games.
The forever DM.
The forever DM. I've found, and many of my friends who play, I introduced to tabletop RPGs. I've found that something being easy to explain is, it lowers the barrier of entry for everybody, and it makes it a lot easier for the person who's running the game to be interested in bringing people into the game. I found the systems that I enjoy the most are ones where mechanics are streamlined. You use the same basic mechanic to do everything you are going to do. And in this case, every single thing you are going to do in this game is going to use the same mechanic, and it is going to have the same rules for success. Did you get a 4 on the die you rolled? And that die is modified by internal factors, your aspects, your traits, your species, and external factors, gear that might help with that, or people, other folks helping, or things that are going to make it more difficult. Those external factors change the vantage, and internal factors change the size of the die. And that right there is all the explanation needed to understand the basics. And like I said, we also attempted to codify natural language. So let's say you decide to create a character, and you create a character who is strong. The sort of things that you expect a strong character to be good at are the kind of things that you're going to get a boost to your die on. Attacking, lifting things, carrying. These are the kinds of things that we expect someone who is strong to be good at. It is inherently there. For a character who is, again, agile, they're going to be better at balancing. They're going to be better at climbing. They are going to be better at jumping and landing on their feet. It is about codifying natural language. So, again, to reduce that barrier of entry, rather than having fun words like power attack, which sound incredibly cool. But if I have no idea what the rules are outside of that, I don't know what that means or how it's applied. Being able to apply every description the same way was a very important keystone in what we were looking for in creating a simulation-heavy game, which was also easy to understand and intuitive.
Gotcha. Now, are you the sole designer on this, or do you have part of a team? What's going on with that?
I am the sole designer on this. I've been working on this since I have been putting words on paper since the summer of 2019, and I have been doing research on this for several years beforehand. I have play tested it with friends and family, other folks who play tabletop RPGs, and we have worked out kinks together. But every decision, every change was made was made by me in the design of this game.
So do you want to talk about the Kickstarter that you have right now? What you're at, how many days is left, what the price point is, delivery method, all of that.
Absolutely. So as of right now, the Kickstarter has 7 days left, and it has been an incredible journey so far. Like I said before, the name of the Kickstarter is Roll for Fire, and it is a part of Kickstarter's Zine Quest. We have 2 zines that are available. There's the Roll for Fire Handbook, which has all of the rules you need to play the game and run the game. It's going to have all of the basics. We also have available for funding a bestiary. Because, quite frankly, there are a huge number of incredibly cool extinct beasts from the Paleolithic era, which we simply didn't have the room in one zine to include all of. Both of these are fully illustrated. We have a couple of absolutely incredible sketch artists who are going to be joining us once the Kickstarter is fully funded, and who are going to be drawing these Paleolithic animals, as well as other things throughout the book. Very excited about that. As far as price point, we have each of the individual zines themselves are under $10 in their physical form, and each one is even cheaper in digital form. I believe our cheapest one is just the handbook for $5 as a PDF. We also have the option, which personal favorite of mine, is our bonfire reward level. This is a reward level where you get several copies of the Roll for Fire handbook and a copy of the Roll for Fire bestiary. We did this because, as someone who has introduced people to a lot of games, I cannot tell you how often I wish I had an extra player's handbook that I could just give to everyone so they could make their characters, so folks could look up rules at the same time. And so being able to have all of these, and this makes them even cheaper. It's only $28 for all 4 of those. So it really reduces the price on those, making it so it is accessible for, if you are the forever game master of your group, being able to hand out rule books to several of your players at once. Like I said, we got 7 days left on the Kickstarter. It has been an incredible experience, and we are so looking forward to getting this game out there for everyone.
Now, how close are you guys to funding it?
We are at, as of earlier today, we are at 60% of the way funded. And yeah, 60%.
Is there a backup plan or anything? If say, if the Kickstarter doesn't fund within the next 7 days, is there a backup plan to have this available elsewhere? Especially with the PDF option being available and stuff like that.
Absolutely. If the Kickstarter does fall through, one of the plans is to, in the future, put the PDF on DriveThruRPG. It'll be under the same name then, Roll for Fire. And we'll end up doing that in the future, even if the Kickstarter succeeds. As for physical copies of it, whether the Kickstarter fails or succeeds on this round, the plan is in the future to attend gaming conventions and have zines available for purchase there. Like anything, we have a future envisioned. So whether we succeed or fail with this Kickstarter, we are looking forward to the idea of in the future creating more under this label, adding more content, creating things so other players can enjoy this as well.
So what made you go with the theme? I just happened to think about that, even just looking at all my board games. Like, you get a lot of the tabletop RPGs or, some sort of fantasy-driven theme or, more of a space theme. The Paleolithic era is kind of not hit on a lot, even a lot of board games and stuff. So was there a special interest that drew you to that, or did you just want to do something different?
I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B in this one. For when I very first started designing this, I wasn't particularly specific in my head on what direction I wanted to go. I also happened to have a special interest in early human communities and archaic human communities. When I considered combining the two was actually several years ago when reading an article about a Neanderthal man whose remains had been found, and he had had a broken leg. And that broken leg had not killed him. Instead, that broken leg had healed, and he had later died of old age. And one of the big sort of aha moments for the scientific community about this Neanderthal body that was discovered was that it confirmed living in communities. It confirmed social animals that used altruism, that helped each other, that ensured that they survived. This broken leg was broken well into this Neanderthal's adulthood. And based on the evidence, it looked like it was likely broken in old age. I mean, this was someone who wasn't necessarily contributing economically, for lack of a better word, to the tribe. This was a community that chose to keep someone alive, that chose to help someone out of empathy, love, whatever words you want to describe it. It is the connection. Building an RPG where that connection was an important part, where teamwork felt important, was already on something I had set my sights on. So combining these two things, it felt like a natural intersection at that point. I found that a lot of tabletop RPGs, there's a huge focus on how you personally as a player can be the hero, how you personally as a player, or how your character gains wealth or gets stronger. It's very much a individualistic, what can you do for me mentality that comes around in a lot of tabletop RPGs. And that's not to say that many of them community isn't an important aspect. It certainly is. I simply wanted to create one where community was a major focus of the theme, and combining it with the Paleolithic era really played into that. So I think that was probably one of the major factors there. And then other design choices, like it primarily being a survival game, had a lot to do with a combination of those two.
Mm-hmm. So I happened to think about it while you were talking about the broken leg not killing. Earlier you said that you removed hit points. So what's the conditions that need to be met for you to die in the game, or for you to be removed from the game?
I'm so glad you asked. So as I described before, you have aspects about your character, internal qualities about your character which make you better at certain things. Your species and your traits, which are adjectives about you, for example, being strong, agile, cunning, etc. Whenever you would take damage, whether that be because a saber-toothed cat is ripping you apart, or you are falling off a cliff, or it's just too dang cold out, any of these causes will cut one of your traits temporarily. You temporarily remove access to that trait, no longer gaining its benefits. And again, these play into the narrative and the simulation. Perhaps it's too cold for you to think straight. It's certainly very difficult to think through things when a giant predator is trying to eat you. Or perhaps you injured your leg while falling, leading you to be less agile. So you lose access to the benefits of these aspects when you've been injured in some way. You can gain them back through rest and through other players taking the time to heal you. But once you've lost all of your aspects, the final aspect you lose is your species, which in the game we refer to as your kin. And when you have lost that aspect, you are deceased. The character is no more. This allowed us... Now, this does create a death spiral game, and we are fully aware of that. And that is intentional and an aspect of the survival part of the game, and it also plays to the absolute importance of teamwork. You can't do this alone, because the moment you start slipping, you are going to continue slipping, and you need a friend to help pull you up.
So what's the condition that needs to be met to remove that? So say you got attacked by a saber-toothed cat. you lose your strong aspect, how does somebody replenish that?
There are two primary forms of healings. Healers, which you want to, an aspect you can choose is a specialization or a class. If you've chosen to be a healer within your community, healers during combat or during encounters can spend one of their actions to roll to heal your cut trait, giving it back. Narratively, in those scenarios, this is going to look like cheering each other on, telling each other to rub some dirt on it, pulling your friend up by their furs, and telling them to get in there. They've got this. The second form of healing happens over rest. When you take the time to rest and you have a fire or are otherwise warm and protected from animals, and you consume rations of food and water every quarter day of rest, which is how we measure time within the game in quarter days. Every quarter day of rest allows you to heal one of these aspects. Healers can, during this time, also accelerate this healing process if, say, you have lost several aspects.
Now, what about the animals or anything like that? How do you defeat them? Do they have hit points, or is it just the humans that don't have hit points?
Everything within the game works off the same system as closely as possible. So a saber-toothed cat also has traits. For example, a saber-toothed cat has the predator trait. It has quick, agile, stealthy, amongst several others. These traits all are going to influence their roles and how they act and what they are good at. And just like you, Death Spiral, when you begin taking damage and having your traits and your aspects cut, the saber-toothed cat is going to operate the same way. The saber-toothed cat, unfortunately for them, does not have the same advantage of teamwork that you do. Again, so this is something that is individually incredibly scary. The saber, when players start the game, they will have 3 aspects, which can be thought of as if you take damage 3 times, you are dead. The saber-toothed cat base has 9. 9 aspects which influence the saber-toothed cat and increase its rolls, and mean it has to take damage 9 times before it is dead. And comparatively, an incredibly scary thing, which again places the value on teamwork.
Nice. I mean, it definitely sounds like a different system. I mean, it's piqued my interest and everything. I like from everything that you've said. I've really liked that getting away from what we're used to. Getting away from the attack modifiers and roll your stats here. Oh, you've got a 17 and then just a bunch of 2s. Is there anything else you want to, tell us about the game? Is there a social media site for the game itself or anything like that people could go check out?
So we don't have a social media site, but what we do have is on the Kickstarter, we currently have the quick start rules as well as pre-generated character sheet for players and game masters to play. We also have a blank character sheet included if someone wants to try and create their own. I think that's the really big thing here is we have sort of the basics of these rules available. The actual zine will include a significant number of additional qualifiers, which will help explain specific scenarios. And obviously our bestiary will include stat blocks for a slew of other animals from the Paleolithic era. We also in another major point of this is, again, pushing the community theme, is we wanted to ensure that working together was incentivized as much as possible. And so, unlike some other role-playing games, spending actions to help or to heal your allies does not take away from your ability to do other actions. And at the start of the game, when players are creating their characters, they also will create their tribe together. Their tribe has traits about it as well. For example, a tribe from the marshlands is going to be members of it are going to be resistant to toxins and sickness. And tribes from the mountains are going to be better at climbing and resistant to the cold. This additional aspect of working togetherness is a huge part of setting up the game in such a way that players are primed for teamwork from the very beginning.
Very nice. Well, Weston, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about your game, Roll for Fire. It's on Kickstarter, and I'm looking forward to it, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was such a wonderful time talking to you.
Absolutely.